Hey you guys, it's John here. Today we are starting all of our ranunculus today. They are such a beautiful spring flower and fall is the best time to plant them, especially if you live in a warm climate. So zones 8 and up, you can plant them in the fall. If you live somewhere colder, you can plant them in very early spring. But ranunculus are these really pretty corms we have here. They almost look like little asparagus roots, all like shriveled up. Here, let me show you guys. They just look like shriveled up little tubers. So what we're going to do is we're going to wake them up. We're going to soak them in water for about 3 to 4 hours to get them nice and plump, and then we're going to pot them up into our seedling trays so that we can get them all rooted out to plant into our containers and into our gardens. So we have all of our buckets laid out over here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to dump all of our corms in the bucket here that we want to pre-soak. This is a ranunculus amandine white that we have a label for. We're going to slap this label on the bucket so we don't forget what is soaking. That's really important. We want to know what flowers these are. So we're going to put all the ones we're soaking in the bucket. This is in a mesh bag. You don't have to take it out of the mesh bag. I just kind of find it helpful. And it's just less bags if you just put it in the bucket. But you could also put all of them in one giant bucket and keep them in the mesh bag. We're going to get all of our corms all filled up in these buckets, and then I'll show you guys what everything looks like, and we will fill them up with water. We have all the ranunculus in the buckets here. As you can see, they're all dry right now. We need to fill them up with water. This one's wet too. We just filled this one up to see how it would hold up. So we're going to fill them up with water, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. All of them are filled up with water. We wanted to make sure that all the corms were completely submerged in water, so the water level is about halfway on these buckets. We're going to change this water about every 30 minutes just so that we have nice aeration. Ideally, you would put a air bubble at the bottom of each bucket, but we don't have a bunch of air bubbles. We're just going to change the water out so that these don't rot. So we're going to do that, and we'll come back in about 3 to 4 hours when they're nice and plump. So we're back after 3 hours, and we've been changing out this water every 30 minutes. So all we basically did was dump out the water that was in these containers, and we just put fresh new water in it. This just helps keep the oxygen level in the water a little bit higher, which helps the roots not rot as quickly. So, which is what we don't want. We don't want them to rot. We don't want them to soak in water for too long. So aerating the soil or the water every 30 minutes definitely helps. So if you see here, they are nice and plump from what they looked like earlier. So this is a optimal stage to plant your ranunculus corms. So we're going to start planting them. We're going to fill up all of our trays here with some soil. Today we're using 50 cell trays. Basically means that there's 50 plugs in the flat. There's 72 that we use, and then there's like 128 you can use too if you have really tiny corms. I find that the 50s are pretty versatile. We have a lot of butterfly ranunculus that are pretty big. We have a lot of anemones that are a lot bigger, and typically they don't fit in the small ones. So we're just going to use the 50s for all of them. I'm going to link them below for you guys if you're interested, but we're going to start filling them up with about an inch of soil, and then we're going to put our corms on top of that. Awesome. Another reason why we use them all in 50 cell trays is we do a lot of jobs and we sell a lot of them to clients, so we can easily grab a tray and bring them with us to a job. I know there's so many different ways to pre-sprout, but this is the best way that works for us in our garden. So what we're going to do here is we're going to fill it with about an inch of soil here. We just kind of sprinkle the soil here, and we're just using general potting soil that has really good aeration, because we want these corms to dry out in between watering. That's what's really important with putting them in trays before you put them in the garden. All this does is it establishes a root system before you plant it into the garden, so it doesn't rot. Sometimes when you have automatic irrigation in your garden, your soil can be really wet and your plants can basically rot the roots, and you don't want your roots to rot. You want these to dry out. You want them to develop a really healthy root system before you put them on irrigation. After they develop a root system in here, you can plant them in your garden and you can have it. Okay, let's go look at, I'll show you guys what it's like right now. So we just have a nice layer of soil here, about an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, but all we're going to do is take our corms, place it right in the center here. So we're just going to do that. Every single cell for all of our flowers. This is a chamallow. This is a really pretty pink one. I'm so excited. I'm always in love with these when I see them blooming in the springtime. So we're going to stop the video and we're just going to plant all these up, and we'll show you guys what we'll do with them after we plant all of these. Okay, so we have this tray planted. It's full of the corms, as you can see here. So now all we're going to do is top it off with our soil. And it's covered about an inch. It's not exactly, it doesn't have to be exact, you guys. We're just pre-sprouting them. We can bury them a little bit more if we want to when we plant them, but they don't have to be planted too deep. I always err on the side of too shallow than too deep, especially with bulbs and corms. Okay, now this looks really good. We're gonna take this and we're going to put it in a cool space. So we're gonna fill up all of these trays right now, and we'll show you guys what we'll do after that. We're back the next day. The day lengths have been getting so short, you guys, that it just got dark out super quickly. So it's the next morning. We built a little bench here with just cinder blocks and pieces of wood, and we just literally put our trays on them. We want to make sure they're in a cool, dark place so that they focus their energy on developing roots. That's what we want them to do right now. This process typically takes about 2 weeks for ranunculus. Anemones are a little bit longer, with 3 weeks for that. But everything looks really good. I do want to make one point. You do want to plant your ranunculus corms down. So we're going to have, I'll grab one for you guys. We have a root right here. You want to make sure that the pointy ends are facing downwards. This is where the roots are going to grow outwards. And with anemones, you want to point the pointy end down. That's where the roots are going to grow out for your anemones. So I will keep you guys updated on what this looks like once they start sprouting. We're only going to water them when they dry out. So for us and our temperatures, we're going to check on them every other day to see how they are. But typically we only water them like every 4 to 5 days when the soil is completely dry. And another tip, if you don't want to plant them in your containers and you want to plant them directly in the ground, just make sure you don't overwater. You can either turn off your irrigation system until they sprout. You start to see some green leaves. You just don't want them to be sitting in water. The roots are very susceptible to rot if you leave them in a highly irrigated soil or if you have heavy clay soil. That's why I always recommend planting them and pre-sprouting them before you plant. I'll show you guys what these look like in just a few days. Stay tuned.